y'all are just y'all are gonna have to y'all are gonna have to just ignore this problem child right here. But I wanted to go over, I think, the phenomenon of nonverbal communication because I find it so interesting, and it's now that I attempt to make a video on it, it's kind of hard to get my thoughts on it. So you're gonna have to allow me a little bit to kind of regather them because I had a whole discourse about it with a friend earlier. But in a sense, I just I think that the degree to which nonverbal communication or gestures or things like that and, are sort of expressed and understood in a way, um, I think it's just genuinely fascinating to see that play out. It's nothing new. I'm not quite sure of the current validity of the sort of statistic that it was. I think it was around like 80 or 90% of communication tends to be nonverbal. I'm not quite sure of the current status of that statistic. It was a while ago, but I just think that it's just wild because it applies to so many different dimensions of affection, and not even necessarily affection. It just in general, it's just a look from a friend that couldn't meet. There's just an immediate understanding. It's just a look from, in that same vein, a partner that could imply a want for sex, or anything else like that. You know, family in distress or just people in distress. It's just, and for as much as you might want to put things like that into words, often people find that it's almost fundamentally inexplicable, and yet we try to do it. And I think that's ironic as well as it is entertaining. It's just very interesting, and it's just intuitive. It's not anything that you necessarily think about, if at all. It's, if anything, words confuse people more, I think. I mean, I have no proof of that, but I just, you see, even from an environmental standpoint, I was going to hold back on this point, but I think that it's just so, I think that it speaks volumes that the things that say no words tend to speak the most. Whether it be actions or events, happenstances, things like that, all of that speaks to you more than words ever could, I think. And I would argue that it's not necessarily the words themselves that are inefficient in whatever it is that inefficient as far as like communication, and for my point, I would argue that it's more so just the fact that, as a result of language, and with language being our primary means of communication, we tend to associate, these sounds coming out of my mouth right now that both you and I both have collaboratively agree to pretend to understand and to assign meanings and whatnot to that for the sake of a smoother sort of level of communication. It's a result out of that the vibrations, the sound. It's easy to forget that what's coming out of my mouth is another part of this system that we call life. It's just vibrations. It's just sound that's coming through the discord of, well, not necessarily discord, but it's coming through the medium of existence as much as any other sound that you hear. And I don't know. But if you go into that, then you can make more arguments. And this isn't really a really much of anything, to be honest with you. It's just more of a just a midnight diatribe. But I just find it very interesting, and I think that it's funny because I had a lot more to say about this when I was mentioning it with my friend, which could just be a result of my level of comfortability to it. And I don't think I'm going to mention too much. I don't think I'm going to do another take of this, simply because really, in truth, I don't exactly know what I'm talking about. But it's always fun to try, It's something about trying to explain the unexplainable. I feel like that's where language comes to some sort of, because even when some people are able, I'm not saying that it's inherently impossible, because there are people, as writers and poets, one of the main things that people try to do is to put words and labels and essentially boundaries to these abstract feelings, these abstract sensations that we feel. That's what writing. That's what that if not necessary. That's not necessarily what writing is per se, but poetry and things like that. At the very least, I don't think it would be unreasonable to say that that's a huge facet of it. And so, I don't know. Because I myself indulge in poetry. If you've been on my page, you know this. So, I think that, and what I usually do is I stoop and I think, and I let myself feel a particular sensation. I try my hardest to kind of go with that. And as I'm writing, I'll try and bathe in that sort of sensation as much as I can. And even then, sometimes I feel like I fall short. Often people don't have the words to express whatever it is they're trying to do. And I think that for the most part, maybe it's because it just wouldn't work in the same way. The love that you feel, the pain that you feel, even, all of that is so acutely there. It's so acutely present. It's just, it fundamentally is coming through a different dimension, I feel. And, or at least, if it is the same, it's from a different, there seems to be some face to it that seems different, if it's not completely different, that isn't the same as the perception that we create. And while all of this could be nonsense, and because I'm running out of time, I'm going to wrap it up and say that, come back to the point that the things that don't say anything are usually the ones that say the most.